that.
I'm a game designer and a 3D artist, and this is how I made a psychological horror game in 2 weeks. The closest I've gotten to making a horror game in the past is this. Exactly 4 years ago, one of my first games I made was a game where you beat birds to death with a stick. Looking at this old game, I'm very proud of how far I've come. So, with that said, let's hop into the new game. Umbral is a 2-week game jam project I worked on for Jam-Dole, an upskilling initiative for South African developers funded by Free Lives, the devs behind Gorn, Genital Jousting, Broforce, and more. They fund developers like me to explore new ideas or expand on prototypes to see if they have potential. So, I pitched Umbral, an expansion on a university project where you could either play against or as a monster called Fidget. It was super bare bones, but I got to make a cool character and make it interactive. This time, I wanted to go further and build a proper narrative experience. More on that later. From the start, I knew I wanted the monster to behave like the Bracken from Lethal Company, but with its own twist. Instead of being outright aggressive, it would be more passive, only acting when provoked. It doesn't kill the player, instead it hinders them, making it harder to complete their objective. But since I'm more of an artist than a programmer, I knew this was gonna be a challenge. And honestly, I wasn't sure if the scope I pitched was too out there. But just like that, I started. First things first, I had to upgrade everything to Unity 6, upgrade my packages, and rework some old systems that didn't support new features I intended to add, like controller support. I also brought in my fog asset to start making the game feel more eerie and scary. At first, the AI was not great. It had 3 states. Hiding, if I looked at it, it panicked and ran away. Stalking, if I got too close, it followed me. And wandering, if I wasn't nearby, it just wandered aimlessly. It wasn't scary. It felt more like a confused roommate sneaking snacks at 2 a.m. It didn't act intelligently when hiding. It just ran back and forth between 2 spots. No logic, no threat, just pure confusion. That had to change. So over the next 2 weeks, I went full mad scientist mode, completely rewriting its behavior, adding states. And the final AI had 8 states. Hiding, fleeing, intimidate, stalking, searching, wandering, stealing, scaring. Here's how it works. It starts wandering, exploring the map. If it hears a noise or sees movement, it rushes to that position. If it loses sight of the player, it starts searching, spinning around in one spot, looking around. If it finds the player, it enters stalking mode, following them from behind at the set distance. But if you back into a wall, it adjusts its position, stalking at an angle to keep line of sight, but staying out of yours. This is where it gets creepy. If you make eye contact, it stops moving and stares at you, entering the intimidate state. As long as it sees you, your sanity drains. The longer you stare, the more an annoyed meter fills. If the meter hits 100 and you have a fragment in your inventory, it steals it. If you don't have a fragment, it charges you to scare you, and if you drop an item mid-charge, it switches from stealing to scaring. It creates this constant tension. You never know whether it's just watching or if it's about to make a move. Well, that's the goal anyway. He still feels kind of not as scary as he could, but yeah, its script is getting crazy long. And since coding isn't my best skill, I'm gonna leave it for now. The original level was just an open grey box. Way too spacious to feel scary, unless you're a person with agoraphobia. Yeah, thanks Google. Anyway, I wanted something claustrophobic and maze-like, so I sketched a top-down map, keeping the corridors tight and interconnected to create a sense of disorientation. At first, I tried Unity's Pro Builder, but it felt a bit chunky and clunky. Instead, I went back to Blender. I blocked out the level using a reference scale of the monster. Wow, what a beautiful being he is. Then I cut out the layout into a plane and extruded the walls. For the ceiling, I designed a decay office look inspired by Portal. And god damn, did this take long. Making the ceiling was so unnecessary, but hey, if you look up now, at least it's pretty. Walls and floors were textured in Substance Designer using a triplanar shader in Unity to avoid extra UV work, cause time was of the essence. Also, unwrapping each wall would have been as tedious as the ceiling. Floors had 3 texture variations, allowing me to paint dynamic decay with vertex colors. I used Polybrush in Unity since I could paint right in the editor. Adding plants, lights, doors, pipes, and decals gave this space a lived-in history and brought the place together. Since this is a horror game, sound is crucial to creating an atmosphere, so I grabbed some sounds off the internet, plopped them into Fmod, and started to bring it all together.
What is that? What is that crystal? It's dark in here.
So I recorded some custom sounds for the monster to really nail the atmosphere, and well, let's just say not all of them turned out terrifying. Anyway, I also wanted voices for the Beacon announcement lady, the player character, and the mysterious scientist. I wasn't even gonna attempt this myself, so I went over to 11 Labs and got some crispy voice actors, threw some reverb on that, and boom, atmosphere. Definitely better than if I had to try do it myself.
Test subject number 47. Injection ready. Subject has been prepped and stabilized. If this is successful, you will fulfill your end of the agreement.
Beacon initialization in progress.
Guessing that crystal
Error.
I saw
Missing
was in
fragment
there.
detected.
Every game has UI, but it's almost never really fun to talk about. So here's a quick overview. I made the main menu, a settings screen for the main menu, an in-game pause menu, and a controls page. I went for a sleek red design inspired by a bunch of references from Pinterest, some gothic styles, and especially the new Nosferatu poster designs. They look pretty cool. And boom, UI done. The goal is simple. Find light fragments and place them into beacons. At first, the fragments were just laying around. The players could beat the game in under 5 minutes. Not ideal, however, for a game jam that required at least 5 minutes of gameplay. So I added 2 puzzles. The storage room lock. This puzzle required the player to put at least 3 fragments into the beacon to unlock the storage room. All the players had to do was play the game. The locked room cut off one of the paths coming from the containment area, so getting this open added an entirely new route to traverse through. The second one is the rune keypad. This puzzle had players looking for rune symbols to input into a keypad near the start of the game. They would have to find 4 runes along with the correct input order to get access to one of the 5 fragments. Neither puzzles is too hard, but they break up the gameplay loop and add some variety. Once you collect all the fragments, an ending cutscene plays, revealing more of the story, but I won't spoil it here. As like any other game jam, there were a ton of bugs, but the only noteworthy one was this. Sometimes the AI contorts into a knot of limbs and just stares at you. Honestly, kinda scarier than intended. This jam was a test to see if Umbral has potential as a full game. If enough people are interested, I'd love to expand it further. For now though, Porker is still our main focus. Expect big updates on that soon. But who knows, maybe Umbral will return. If If you want to try it yourself, the link to the Windows build is in the description below. A like and subscribe would mean the world. Thanks for watching. Cheers.